I read a meditation this morning by Richard Rohr, and it reminded me that there was a time in my life when I thought I was going to figure everything out. I believed that if I worked hard and if I understood the right things and believed the right way, then everything would eventually come together. Life would make sense and everything would become more clear and settled. But it never became really clean. It always seems to stay complex, and in many ways, it's stayed confusing. And so, somewhere along the way, something in me began to shift, and I stopped looking for answers, and I started looking for more presence. Not because I was giving up on understanding, but because I began to see that answers weren't actually healing anything. What I needed was not a system that explained life. I needed a way to be able to be more with life without turning against it and without turning against myself. And so, in this Good Friday meditation from Rohr, he invites us to see Jesus not as just something to believe in, but as someone who reveals something deeper about us and our human experience. He writes about how Jesus became what we fear the most: exposure and vulnerability, failure and pain. And instead of passing that pain back into the world, Christ absorbed it. And he refused to transmit it. And that line, that he refused to transmit it, has really been staying with me. Because when I look honestly at my own life and at the world around me, so much of what we call suffering is actually pain being passed along. It's hurt people hurting people, and fear creating more fear, and shame reinforcing shame. It moves through families and it moves through relationships, through religions and cultures. We take what was done to us, and without even realizing it, we hand it to someone else. And sometimes, this happens loudly, and sometimes it happens quietly. And sometimes it's only inside ourselves. And then other times it erupts out into the world. What I'm beginning to see is that this is a cycle. This is the crucifixion that keeps happening again and again. So, what if salvation is not about escaping the cycle? What if it's about interrupting it? What if the invitation is this simple and this difficult? What if it is to feel what we've been given without passing it on? To stay present to our pain without turning it into blame or control? And to stop the violence, not just out there in the world, but also within us, in the way that we speak to ourselves, and in the way that we reject parts of ourselves, and in the way we are constantly bracing against the world. And I'm not saying at all that this is going to be easy. In fact, it may be one of the hardest things that we ever have to do. Because everything in us, everything wants relief. And a lot of times, the quickest way to discharge pain is to put it out into the world or towards someone else. But what I'm beginning to notice slowly within my body is that when I take a breath and I don't turn it outward, that something in me begins to soften. And underneath the pain, there's something else. There's something more alive and whole. Something that was never actually broken. And maybe that's what it means to come back home. Not to fix ourselves and not to figure it all out. Maybe it's to stop passing the wound, to become a place where the cycle ends and something new can begin. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.